Today we're working on a 2004 club car, golf cart. We're going to switch out the igniter and the rev limiter. Pretty difficult working on this engine. Everything's closed in the compartment. But ultimately we want to get this shroud off of the flywheel to replace the igniter, which most people would refer to as a magneto on a typical lawnmower engine. Some things that would have helped me if I could have found the video sort of on the simple side really relate to just removing the end from the spark plug thing. The new magneto comes without the end, so the trick is how to get this piece off, and basically it's threaded on like a screw. You just put it on the end, twist it in, and then it's on. So I have my new one here. Got this at the Cart Barn. Really pleased with their prices. Seemed to save about $100 over some other sources I looked at. Put my new rubber stops and so forth back on. That's the magneto or the igniter. This is the rev limiter. The problem I was having with this golf cart is it would run, as soon as it got hot, it would stop running. Wouldn't provide a spark. Initially, I disconnected the ground on the rev limiter and it ran for a while that way, so the rev limiter went bad, but eventually I was having trouble with it cutting off consistently, and I'm hoping that the new igniter will take care of that problem. So that we're going to fix that today, and hope this video will help you, particularly with some of these small things. On the side here you'll see two screws where the new igniter will go. Here's the magnet on the flywheel. Take a moment and clean that. Mine was corroded, had a lot of rust and stuff on it. Took a piece of sandpaper, cleaned it up. That could have been part of the problem, but make sure all of that's clean before you reinstall the new igniter. Okay, when you install this new rev limiter or magneto, you got to provide some clearance between the flywheel and the rev limiter. So what I've used here is a piece of 100 grit sandpaper, basically as a thin spacer to make sure I maintain clearance on that flywheel. Little trick I picked up in a small engine class, but you need to maintain some clearance. It doesn't need to be a lot, but so that the flywheel will pass safely over that magneto. So now that I have it in, I'm going to tighten that up and move on to the next step. Basically here we're going to reinstall our wire to our igniter. This runs back under the housing here to the rev limiter that's on the face of the engine. I'm going to get back in here in a minute and work underneath of here to put the rev limiter. You can see some of the wires hanging. There's one wire there, and then there's a couple that go back to the motor starter. Hard to tell, but make sure you go back and check your clearance on your magnet. Rotate it back and forth. Mine's working fine, but that piece of sandpaper was just enough to make sure you had clearance in your magneto. You do not want it rubbing against each other. Okay, I got the new rev limiter installed, bolts in it, wires reconnected. Make sure you pay attention to how your wires came off so you get those back correctly. I did test start it, but didn't want to run it much with the muffler off with no back pressure. It did run, so looking forward to getting the rest of these parts on. Getting this shroud and pieces back on. It's pretty difficult. You got to take part of the chassis off. I jacked mine up, took the wheel off this side so I could get to everything, because that shroud just barely comes off. You're going to have to take the muffler off. Then you're going to have to take that bracket off this side that holds the muffler to get everything off. Now I'm going to be putting that shroud back on and the muffler and so forth. Much quicker getting it on than it was getting it off. You just got to accept that it's tough and you need to take it off. I thought I was actually going to have to take the engine out, which I did not, but you won't be excited about the number of bolts that's got to come off for such a small activity. At the risk of boring some of you veteran mechanics, I'm going to show you a little trick. Some of these bolts are really difficult to get to. So basically, what I do is I take a piece of tape, take my bolt to the end of the socket so I can thread it in. Might bore some of you more veteran mechanics, but it's just a little trick to get the job done. With this side bracket, remember it's easier to take the muffler off first and then take this bracket off. I tried to take it off with the muffler still hooked to it. The muffler bracket hooks to the back. It's a lot easier if you take the muffler off first. And also in the engine compartment, make sure you realize you're working with aluminum fittings. The casings, you don't want to twist those bolts too hard or you'll twist them out.